The MatSu Valley is one of the most unique markets in this specific area for a number of reasons that we're going to be getting into today, but really the big thing we need to answer is what is likely going to happen moving into the future here? Do we expect instability? Can we expect big upheavals if you're buying, or is this going to be a great time for you to jump in? Are you going to make a mistake by buying now? If you're wanting to sell, does it make sense to kind of stay where you're at for the time being? Well, I'm going to be providing you some information today that'll hopefully give you some more clarity on that. My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm a realtor with Keller Williams here in South Central Alaska, and my mission is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching in real estate. Now, let's go ahead and jump into this market update today, looking at the MatSu Valley, which is really going to be Wasilla and Palmer, and we'll be talking about the residential, the condo, and the multifamily market. Before we get started, give this video a like, and let's go ahead and jump into it. The first thing that we need to check out is what's going on as far as the residential market goes, because that's going to be the biggest sector in the MatSu Valley. So this time last year, there was about 290 properties were available on the market. Now we're seeing about 370 approximately. So this is good news for the market just across the board, because we are starting to see more inventory come onto the market. I suspect this probably has more to do with new construction that's just been more aggressive about trying to get that built and sold the past couple of years, but it's still a welcome development if you're wanting to buy property in the MatSu Valley. The next thing we're seeing is that the number of properties that actually sold in the MatSu Valley on the residential side for the houses went from about 198 the year before. Now it's about 185. So seeing a slight dip in the number of properties that actually sold. Not a huge difference either way, but that also is something to keep an eye on. The next thing we're seeing is that the average sold price in the MatSu Valley increased by approximately 10% year over date, because it was about $342,000 this time last year. Now it's about $382,000 this year to date. So that's pretty significant, and we'll talk about why that is in the summary. The next thing we're going to look at is what's going on in the condo market. Now, the condo market in the MatSu Valley is not particularly large, just because condos is not the reason that people move to the MatSu Valley. That's not really what people are envisioning when they're wanting to move here. And so it's not particularly a huge sector of the market, but it's becoming more and more popular. So, I'm just going to say we had 8 condos available to sell this time last year. Now it's 4. Now, for the number of properties or number of condos that have actually sold in the MatSu Valley, we see this time last year, 10 condos sold. This past month in May, we saw 4 sold. So not a huge, percentage-wise, it's a big deal. Not a big difference as far as the overall pool of inventory here in the MatSu Valley, though. The next thing we're seeing is that the average sold price went from about $190,000 this time last year to date, to about $230,000 this year, which percentage-wise, that's pretty big. That's just over a 20% increase for the average sold price for condos here in the MatSu Valley. That probably has more to do with the fact just that we have such a small pool, and the condos that are selling are probably brand new condos. So we would expect to see that pretty high increase. We're going to be jumping into talking about what's going on in the multifamily properties here in the MatSu Valley in just a minute. But before we do that, if you haven't done so already, do make sure you go check out my podcast at Alaskan Journey. That's where we really talk about the experiences that people have as they've moved up here. So it's not just me talking, it's interviewing people who've recently moved up here or people who've lived up here for years and talking about their experiences. So you kind of get the real, raw, authentic Alaskan experience talking on that. So do feel free to go check that out. And let's go ahead and finish today's market update. Now, looking at the multifamily market, we're not seeing a huge shift in the inventory. It's certainly not going up, but it's not catastrophically dropping, which is good, because we're seeing the number of properties available on the market this time last year was 21, and now it's 17. So not a huge difference either way. People in the MatSu Valley that are landlords right now and owning these multifamily properties, not really wanting to sell them anytime in the near future, just because the rents are going up so aggressively. So, there's no reason you would really want to sell one of them right now. The next thing we're seeing is that the number of multifamily properties in the MatSu Valley has definitely increased year over date. Back in May of last year, there were 11 properties that sold that were multifamily. Now 18. So proportionally, pretty big difference. And again, that just kind of speaks to how how in demand these multifamily properties are because the rents have gone up so drastically in the MatSu Valley. I was speaking with Eric Boltman of RPM on a podcast episode, and he said the average rent in the MatSu Valley has actually gone up by about 33%. So that's a reason that a lot of those multifamily properties are so popular right now. Last but not least, what we're seeing for the average sold price for multifamily properties in the MatSu Valley is it's actually increased by approximately $20,000 because it went from about average sold price this time last year was about $463,000. Now we're seeing about $383,000. So seeing an increase there, not nearly as drastic as what we saw the year before, where, I mean, it's gone up nearly 100,000 in the past couple of years, and a lot of that has to do with just the increased market value, because obviously the market value for a multifamily property has more to do with the rents than it does anything else. So across the board, what are we seeing from the MatSu Valley? Well, if you are on the residential side, it's a welcome trend that we're starting to see the inventory going up year over date. Hopefully that does continue because it's not healthy to have a super low inventory for so long. I hope to see that continue. I'm not expecting a huge market shift like some people are saying. I could 100% be wrong, but realistically what I'm seeing is that things are probably going to just slowly kind of shift back into being more of a balanced market instead of this huge shift that some people are broadcasting. Alaska is really not one of those markets that took off quite as much as other markets. Like there's some places like Miami and places in Arizona and in Austin, Texas, places like that. You might see kind of a market correction over there, but from what I'm seeing, I'm not really expecting that here in Alaska. Could be 100% wrong. That's just what I'm seeing. On the condo side, not really seeing much of a shift there. I'm expecting we're seeing just more and more new condos coming onto the market, and we've kind of talked about multifamilies before, where we are seeing an increase in the average sold price and the demand on those properties right now. You know, they're great if you can get into them and get into the right price. My only concern with those is you need to make sure that you can actually get a property that it makes sense, where if there's an adjustment down in the average rental rates right now, it still makes sense. If you're barely making the numbers work right now on a multifamily property in the MatSu Valley with the rents going up, I would probably steer really clear of that property just because we don't know for sure what's going to happen. And rents, likely they're going to keep going up here, but just make sure you have a little bit of margin baked in there just to be on the safe side. So I sure hope this has been useful for you. If you have any questions on what's going on in the real estate market, do make sure you reach out to me, preferably on my website. That's like a surefire way to get through to me. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you do have. If you're interested in moving up here, do feel free to check out my relocation guide, which is for free, by the way. Just reach out to me on my website and put relocation guide in the little box there where you go ahead and write a message to me so I know what to send you. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.